Welcome to 39-Minute Conversations. Please wait for your host to begin this meeting. Your meeting is now being recorded.
Okay, can you see me? Can you hear me? Are you there? Yes, you are.
What's up?
What's up, man? Good to see you. Holy crap. I just had a moment of like, it's been so long. I saw you pop on and I was like, this has been way too long.
It has been way too long. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much, Brian, for asking me to do this. This is so great. And more importantly, it is great to see you. And hopefully we can hang out soon, longer than 39 minutes.
I would love that. But before we can even get into this conversation, I do have to get through a quick ad read. I hope you understand. I hope that's okay. And then I'll intro you and we'll do this thing. This week's episode of 39-Minute Conversations is not technically presented by Mother's Day. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, and honestly, if you have, God bless you, you may have heard me feature some ad reads for my father's business. He's a realtor in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Great deals. Check him out. It's been fun to feature my dad, but you know who feels left out? My mom. I told her if she had a business, I'd be happy to promote it, but so far she has yet to start one. She would rather enjoy her retirement, I guess. But she's my mom, and I love her, and she does deserve a moment in the spotlight. So this ad is a reminder to my listeners, this Sunday is Mother's Day. I know we've got a lot going on right now. My listeners, the WGA is on strike. The DGA and SAG-AFTRA negotiations are coming up. We're out there on the picket lines. We're busy, we're stressed, we're tired. But our moms, they were busy and stressed and tired too, you know, and they need love and attention. My mom likes to say that every day is Mother's Day because, like me, she also loves attention. But this is the official Mother's Day, the real one. Sorry, Mom. So if you're lucky enough that your mom is still around, if you have a good relationship, take a minute to celebrate her. If you are a mom, take a minute to be celebrated. It is your day. If you're near her, go see her. If not, give her a call, send some flowers. And Mom, your gift from me is this ad read because I am on strike and I am poor. And this is the best I can do. But I love you. Happy Mother's Day from all of us at 39-Minute Conversations, which is just me. And hello, I am Brian T. Arnold, and this is 39-Minute Conversations, a podcast about reconnecting with old friends and making new ones, but I've only got 39 minutes to do it because I will not be paying for Zoom Pro. My guest today is a very funny performer, writer, host. You may know him from Animation Investigation, El Rey Nation, Shield of Tomorrow. He's a host of Nerdist News and a co-host of Heroes Reforged. If you're a fan of Marvel or DC or Star Wars or Star Trek or all things that we nerds are into, you probably already know him and love him. Please welcome Hector Navarro.
Brian T. Arnold, I miss your sense of humor, my friend. Thanks for letting me listen to that ad read. That was great.
Thank you for pretending like you enjoyed it. That's very kind of you.
That was great. It's giving me flashbacks to when we met. I assume it was an improv class, and getting to hang out and getting to appreciate each other's sense of humor. You were always so funny and so smart. And it has also been great to see you supporting the writers out there. It has been really awesome. I mean, I've just been at home. I don't have a job currently, but I've been watching everybody. It's off to a great start. But watching everybody from home, I feel like there's like an energy in the town right now, and it's really awesome. So keep up the good work, man.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
It definitely is good energy out there. Like I am proud to I just joined the Writers Guild last year, so I got in just
great.
under the wire to to deal with all this mess.
Deal with this, yeah.
But I'm very excited and proud member. I'm happy to be out there. It is a lot, but you know, we have people out there who are pre-WGA, who are Screen Actors Guild, Directors Guild, just, you know, supporters. If you want to come to a picket line, you're more than welcome.
Yeah. I'm trying to carve out some time this week. I have to do some stuff tonight and tomorrow night and then Saturday morning. I was talking with my girlfriend and we were trying to figure out, I'm like, when are we going to go see Guardians of the Galaxy? We can't go until Saturday.
Right.
And then it's going to be Mother's Day, and then it's going to be my girlfriend's birthday, and then it's, you know, so we have a couple of things lined up, but I would love to come down and march with you guys and you know, and ask Jay Leno, where are my donuts? And he'll be like, oh, here you go, they're right here, here you go. I'm like, I'm not a writer, sorry, you should give those donuts to other people.
I love that you just had that Jay Leno impression. I mean, everybody has that Jay Leno ready, but you had that I'm gonna mention him because I've got this locked and ready to go.
I did not plan it like that.
But you nailed it.
It's just easy to do it, Jay. I feel like I'm copying Conan O'Brien. I'm copying you know, I realized at a young age I don't do impressions of famous people. I do impressions of comedians doing impressions of famous people
Sure.
is what it, you know, you like,
Sure.
it's like you have to hear somebody do it and then it unlocks it in your brain and you go, oh, I see the
Yeah.
magic trick. I understand how they do that now. Like as a kid, I never did um George H.W. Bush. I was just doing
That
Dana
was the
Carvey.
example that I was just
Yeah.
about to say. That
Dana
was like one
Carvey,
of my first
like
impressions as a kid was Dana
wouldn't be
Carvey.
prudent,
Yeah.
like wouldn't be prudent. And like, I'm not watching the news. I was watching SNL. I was watching
Right.
reruns of SNL and getting Dana Carvey to like unlock that for me. And Will Ferrell unlocked W, you know, with a couple of
Sure.
key things. And so everybody's Jay Leno is always just,
Hey,
you know, he's
yeah,
a little,
yeah. What's on the news? What else is going on? Yeah.
squeaky, whispery guy. I picture myself getting a longer chin, like the
Sure.
Moon Man from
That's
McDonald's.
important.
Like
Yeah.
I picture this like wobbling, like huge head. Hey, how are you doing? You hear about this? You hear about that? And that's all it is. And also the freedom to like, I love making fun of Jay Leno because I'm like,
Sure.
oh, he's very, very wealthy. He drives around town in his cars. He, you know, in my comedian brain, in my history of loving comedy, I'm like, oh, he was the guy that was like, give me my show back, Conan. I'm not ready. And so I'm like, you know what? He could be taken down a peg still. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so it's just the freedom to fully
Oh
make fun of a
yeah.
person and not feel like, am I going to hurt his feelings or his family's
I think he'll be
feelings? I
okay.
don't think he's got kids. I'm just like, just rip into it. It's fine.
I still have a one of my few like nerd items I've collected. I used to be a producer at an NBC affiliate, like back when I
Mm-hmm.
worked in news,
Mm-hmm.
and I was there like right after Conan was fired from Tonight Show, which obviously was very devastating for all of us who grew up on hit
Mm-hmm.
with him. But I went to the storage room one day and they still had a Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien poster in there.
Grab it.
So that I did. I'm admitting to that. I hope that's not. I hope the statute of limitations is over. But I definitely snaked that poster and put it up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure nobody at that NBC affiliate would care. I'm sure nobody cared, but it's just it meant so much. And I still think about so often I think about his last show and what he's the
Mm-hmm.
speech that he said where he was just
Oh
like,
my
if I
God,
could
yeah.
tell the young people, don't be cynical. I think about that
Mm-hmm.
all the time,
Mm-hmm.
Brian.
Me
All the
too.
time. It really affected me. It's wonderful. If I ever meet Conan O'Brien, that's the first thing I'm going to tell him is I'll be like, hey, I'm one of the young people that grew up watching your stuff, your shows, plural,
Mm-hmm.
and that speech meant so much and I think about it constantly. And
I do too.
maybe I'd like to think maybe it did have some kind of an effect in shaping any of my decisions or my outlook or you know whatever. So it's pretty cool, pretty great.
No, very cool. Yeah, I did see I've only seen Conan in person once, but I was a tour guide on the Warner Brothers lot, and I just like walked
Great.
by him sitting for lunch, and I was like, I can't. I'm not.
I
I
know.
like in this job, I can't do that. But yeah,
Listen,
he's
if
a
a
hero of mine too.
yeah, it's I have decided, it's not something I learned. I decided on my own, Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
that I would only bother a famous person in the wild, in public,
Mm-hmm.
if I had a good enough thing to say, if I had a good enough if it truly was like this is seriously super meaningful to me and I don't mean to bother, but I just want to share this thing with you and
Mm-hmm.
then tell you have a great day. Have a great rest of your day. Like I will leave you in peace, but I just want to leave you with this little thing. And Conan O'Brien is absolutely a person I would go up to. When I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid, I had decided I was like if I ever see Steven Spielberg,
Mm-hmm.
not going to tell him about Jurassic Park, not going to tell him about E.T., not going to tell him about anything. I'm going to go up and be like, I loved the show Animaniacs so
Mm,
much. Thank
sure.
you for producing that show. I have 2 seconds. Bye. Like that's the thing that's at the top of my list that I would say.
I like
And
I
I
like
feel
your
like
two
I would still say that. Yeah.
I like your 2 second rule because yesterday I was in the picket line and there were I'm not going to name names but there are a couple people in line that I'm a fan of
I'm sure. I'm sure.
and they're full it's full of them and I've talked to a few but like I just did a quick like hey really enjoy your stuff like you know whatever
Yep.
and then
Yep.
but the problem is, and they were very nice about it they're like oh thank you but then it was like oh we're just still in line together for a while
Yeah.
it was just like well now it's I've made it weird and I'm just still around you
Didn't mean to lock you into a thing.
yeah
That's when you have to go like turn around and go, hey, I really like your stuff, and then turn back around and then you take out your own phone and be like, I'm busy doing stuff. I'm in my own world. I'll let you be in your own world.
sure
That reminds me of a thing that happened in 2011
mm-hmm.
in Los Angeles. I went to go see a UCB show on Franklin, and I was in line, And a few weeks or so before, I had a buddy of a buddy, somebody tell me through some connection or whatever, they were like, oh, Andrew Garfield from The Social Network and gonna be Spider-Man, because that hadn't come out yet,
right,
is taking a UCB class with my friend. And
What?
I was like, that's crazy. And I said, why? And this person was like, because his agent told him to, apparently. And like, he showed up to class, and like, he might be using it as more of like a dramatic exercise. And it's a little awkward because like UCB 101 is like, it's like,
It's
people,
children. We're all kids
children,
in there.
we're kids. We're trying to be funny. We're trying to do the UCB, like main stage Herald style of
That's all we're there for. Yeah.
Here comes a dramatic actor apparently trying to do stuff, but I'm in line for UCB, so I know this information. It's a I can't remember what night it was, but I think it was Herald night, because I was also taking a class at the time, and that's your homework assignment. You got to go see a couple Heralds. So I'm standing in line with a few of my friends, turn around behind me, and Andrew Garfield is in line like a couple people back with somebody. He wasn't with Emma Stone, who I think he was dating at the time. It was like him and somebody I don't know, a friend of his, whatever.
Sure.
And he had like a beanie on, and he was just kind of like chill. And I knew that he was there. I'm like, I know that's Andrew Garfield, not just a handsome guy, because I have the information that he is taking a class currently. So he has the same homework assignment that I do. And no joke, on my cell phone was saved the first image of him as Spider-Man, which was a promotional shot, and he's looking behind his back, and you see the costume. And so it was like the new Spider-Man after Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
And on top of this was in August. I remember August of 2011, because the month before, July of 2011, I was in San Diego. I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and I was in Hall H, where they have their big panels, and there was a panel for The Amazing Spider-Man, and he was there, and everybody was there, but the dude showed up in a costume, in a Halloween costume. I don't know if you've ever seen this clip. If you've ever seen this.
Yeah. He was walking around Comic-Con all day, like dressed as Spider-Man. Nobody knew it was him.
In like a Halloween, like very like cheap, and it was adorable. But he goes up to the microphone, because there was a Q&A, and they were taking questions from fans. And he goes up, and then he rips his mask off, and he's like, I just want to read this note to everybody. And if I think about this, Brian, if I really let myself get into that moment, I could move myself to tears, because it was the sweetest. He reads this letter about growing up this skinny, picked on kid in England, so far away from the US, but still felt a connection to this fictional character. And everything he was saying,
fictional character,
my absolute favorite. And everything he was saying, I was like, I'm like, man, this British guy is me. But I grew up in San Diego. I grew up in California, far away from New York, far away from England. And what he said was so beautiful. It was so great. And he was like, I have at times in my childhood, like, felt Spider-Man's hand on my shoulder to like encourage me and to be brave, and all of this stuff that's like so beautiful. Goes up to the table as they're doing the panel, and then the next question was like, hi, do you do all your own stunts? Like, nobody else at Comic-Con acknowledged that wonderful thing that happened. So I'm standing in line in LA with my friends, and I go, that's Andrew Garfield. He saved on my phone. Like, I'm a fan, and I loved him in Social Network. He's a brilliant young actor.
Great actor.
And my friends are like, are you going to go over there and say something to him? And my friends were like, don't do that. And I said, but hang on. I was at Comic-Con last month, 4 weeks ago, and I just want to go up and tell him what he said meant so much to me, and he should have gotten more love from the crowd. It was a beautiful, beautiful sharing. That's all I want to say to him. And my friends were like, you should say that to him. That's actually very nice. Like, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
So I muster up the courage. I step out of line, walk up to him, and he looks at me, and he knows what's going to happen.
Sure.
That celebrity thing where it's just like, I have to deal with this. He wasn't mean.
Yeah. No, it's just like face. That. Like, everybody like is tired of that, I'm sure.
And I'll never forget that the woman next to him looked at me and had this look of like just, oh, brother, like so annoyed. And as I come up to him, I'm like, hi, I'm sorry to bother you. Are you Andrew Garfield? And he goes, yeah, mate. Yes. What can I do for you? And I'm like, hi, my name is Hector. I just want to say I was at Comic-Con last month. I was in the room. What you said when you pulled out that speech, like, it was emotional. It was beautiful. I loved it so much. You should have gotten more love from the crowd for that. I just wanted to say that was awesome. And as I'm saying this, I can see out of the corner of my eye, his friend's face goes from that look of like, to this. Like, I won her over. She was like, aw, like I won her over.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh no, I didn't tell him my name, but he goes, oh, thank you so much, mate. What's your name? And I was like, Hector. My name's Hector. And he like shook my hand. He's like, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. And I was like, no problem. Have a great night. Have a great show. And then went back in line.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember feeling like I'm very glad I did that.
Yeah.
It sucks because there is a half a second of the
celebrity
face of like, who is this person? Which is expected, you know.
Yeah.
But that was that kind of that experience was like to me it is, if the situation is okay, you know, not if they're having dinner, not if they're, you know what I mean? Like but if they're standing in line, if it's one of those things where it's like, I'm in the same space you are. In many ways, you and I are equals. We're both in line to see a show.
Right.
Like, I'm not trying to like grab you from a red carpet. I'm not trying, you know, you're not at your work and I'm being annoying. It's like, it's okay. But it made me feel like maybe I'm justified in having that feeling of save it for the people that you, if you could run into so and so, what's the one sentence you would say to them to really, you know, and to have that in your back pocket, especially if you live in Los Angeles, because you could run into all the time. It's crazy. So anyway, yeah.
With Nerdist, you've done a lot of like interviews and stuff with celebrities, obviously. Have you talked to Andrew Garfield again since? Has that ever?
I haven't. Okay. I don't think. I have not. But yeah, I'm trying to remember if I did actually. And I'm like, if I did, what would it have been for? Would it have been for Spider-Man No Way Home, which was a secret. He wasn't doing press for
like
that.
Post, but post, you know, maybe, yeah. I'm
trying to think what other like nerdy, if he's been in other, you know.
He hasn't done a lot of nerdier stuff other than Spider-Man. Coming back for Spider-Man, yeah.
He just does. And I'll be honest too, I'm like, that's fine. I think his Spider-Man is, I always went to bat for his Spider-Mans. Both of those movies I think are fine. I don't think they're as bad as people who like. I mean, we can get into it, but I don't think
we don't have to get into it. But I don't love them as much as you do. But I think he's fine. Great. I think he's great in them.
I'll say this. Like, I love the villains of the first three, like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films. I love the villains. Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Thomas Hayden Church. Like, I even like Topher Grace as Eddie Brock. Well, like,
didn't hate him. Yeah, I didn't hate him.
I'm into all of the stuff that Sam Raimi did with the villains of those films. It's fantastic. It's kind of tough for me to rewatch those movies now. I think Andrew Garfield is the sweetest. I think he's so great. I don't love the writing or the sort of direction for the character of Peter Parker. I think his Peter Parker is more, in a way, it's more, and this is kind of unfair because at the end of the day, this is what actors are hired for. They're bringing their own essence, their own humanity. But his Peter Parker, I feel like, is more Tobey Maguire, being, you know, a wide-eyed youth adolescent going into adulthood, like, you know, just like the sensitivity, the sweetness. And since I was a kid, I've read Spider-Man comics and I go, the reason I love him is because he is that, but he's also like funny. He's genuinely funny. The quips are not just annoying, eye rolling or unfunny. I'm like, there's an insecurity behind it. He's very self-deprecating, but he hypes himself up and gives himself that bravery. And once people kind of see who he really is, they fall in love with him. You know, Peter Parker's just a great guy who I think can be very charismatic. And I don't know if the Tobey Maguire Peter is that. Now,
I don't think so, yeah.
Right. But those movies are still gems.
Those movies are still great. Love them.
They're great. But it's like a 60s, almost out of time, you know, take on the whole world, which is great. You get to the Andrew Garfield movies, I think him and Emma Stone's chemistry is like genuinely wonderful.
Yeah.
And I can watch those movies, and for as messy as they are, there's so much going on. The scenes where he and Gwen Stacy are like interacting, I think they're lovely. And the scene where Gwen Stacy dies and the stuff that they do in that movie afterwards, and Andrew Garfield is like mourning, I'm like, I think it's brilliant. It sucks that it's sandwiched in the middle of this movie because I'm like, that's pure Spider-Man in there. So I love the sort of hero side of those Spider-Man films. I don't like the Lizard. I don't, you know, I think they wasted Jamie Foxx, and the proof is they brought back Jamie Foxx and he was better than he was in his own.
He played a completely different character, like same character but completely different,
which is fun. I'm like, this is great. Should have been from the beginning, you know. So I will always go to bat for his Spider-Man movies because I'm like, look, they're messy and they're probably straight up bad movies, but he and a couple other elements of these movies are brilliant and they shine through for me. And then I think I was justified as a fan when they brought him back for No Way Home. I thought they used him expertly well, and right. And people were like, "Oh, dude, my dude's stealing this movie." I'm like, "Yes,
he was always good. He was just in not great movies."
Absolutely. So Yeah, but if I ever meet Andrew Garfield again, I'm absolutely going to be like, "Hey, man, you were really nice to me in 2011." Like just
Yeah,
like
sure.
thank you for just being a nice guy, and thanks for caring about a character, Peter
Yeah.
Parker, that I care about very much. And yeah, that's all. And I'm
Most
sure he'll be like, "Great, thanks."
Thanks, mate. One thing that really stands out to me about that story that I love is Andrew Garfield's serious actor was still doing his UCB 101 homework. Like he was still
I
going
know.
to I have to go to a Herald night.
I
Like
know,
that's
right?
part of this.
And I don't know if it's true or not, and I don't know if it's like a rumor through the grapevine of like, no, he was just doing dramatic like initiations for scenes. But it kind of makes sense that he would be. I think it's very funny to do like a UCB 101 scenario, and then here comes like an actor who's like, I've been in movies directed by David Fincher. I'm gonna go and
Yeah.
work with so and so, you know. Didn't he do a movie with Scorsese? I can't remember, but like
Silence.
Silence, yeah, Martin
Yeah.
Scorsese. And then it's like one student is like their initiation's like, I'm doing dishes. Honey, have you seen a cat or whatever? Like the dumb initiation is.
Sure.
And then Andrew Garfield steps in. He's like, your wife is dead. Like, or whatever weird, dramatic, and he wants us to go there. And these
Yeah.
poor 101 students are like, I'm trying to be a comedic, sitcom actor. Whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's so funny.
I do too. That's really great.
Yeah.
Man, one thing that I think is really interesting about you, you alluded to like you grew up listening to watching these cartoons and reading these comic books and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But when I have guests on, usually what I'm talking about when we start is sort of the path to get to their career when they realize they
Sure.
wanted to do it. What's interesting about you is like when you were a kid, what you're doing right now didn't exist, right?
Right.
You've
Right.
kind of you're kind of on the forefront of creating what is now a business.
Well, I will say that I think it did exist, but the speciality, the
Hmm.
focus of what I sometimes get hired to do did not exist. So when I was a
Hmm.
kid, we did have things like Entertainment Tonight or Access Hollywood or Extra. I don't know when those types
Sure.
of, like basically like entertainment news journalism or interviews, or even we're talking about Conan O'Brien. He does interviews, and he's a
Sure.
brilliant. He's one of the interviewers that I studied. He's so
Hmm.
good,
Hmm.
But as the entertainment industry changed,
Right.
I just happened to get lucky in that the thing that I invested all of my time and my passion in,
Hmm.
um, which is in this wall behind me of all these comic books and stuff. The things that I loved as a kid, I
Hmm.
loved superhero comic books as a kid, but I also loved movies and TV shows. And me loving movies so much, I would look at these comic books and I would look at them cinematically. I would be like,
Sure.
these could
Same.
make all the best movies. Why haven't they
Hmm.
made these movies? Warner Brothers has the rights to all the Justice League. Why didn't they make the Justice League? Why did they just stop
Sure.
at Superman and Batman? Where's Wonder Woman? Where's all the rest of these characters? And I think it was, you can see it too, because I grew up in San Diego. I'm not someone who's going to be mad or gatekeeping
Hmm.
about the fact that San Diego Comic Con is now like an LA event, basically.
Basically, yeah.
The industry descends into that town for a week, 2 weeks, a week, and just shows trailers and like anything that's not a drama or a comedy
Hmm.
will try to get like a trailer, revealed on there, a panel or whatever. I was really stoked to see that happen because I love all this stuff.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
when you grow up in San Diego and you keep visiting San Diego Comic Con every year, you can see the shift from, oh, Hollywood has taken note. You can make money off of it. Like this stuff is
Hmm.
big moneymaker stuff. This is great blueprints for Hollywood blockbusters, which make the most money. So I was stoked to see that happen. The thing that I invested my time and love in ended up becoming valuable. That
Hmm.
knowledge became valuable. And it's tricky because it's thought of as being valuable on the internet. It's not. It shouldn't be. It's thought of as
Sure.
that began with internet culture, with
Hmm.
the Star Wars prequels and the Phantom Menace in 1999, and that began with men gatekeeping their thing and being like, "Oh, you're a Star Wars fan? Name every Star Wars character ever." Like
Right.
that bullshit.
Right.
And so it's a tricky thing to navigate when you're a guy, a straight guy,
Hmm.
a cis straight guy. I'm not white, so I have that going for me. I'm a brown guy at least.
Congratulations.
I can be
Yeah.
like, I understand some struggle, but I do not understand a lot of struggle. But
Right.
it's tricky when you are in that position and you love this stuff. And I mean, I'll talk about being brown for a second too, because I think that
Yeah,
ended up
please.
shaping a lot of what I ended up doing. But in any case, the thing for like, you're right. I did not expect to be doing what I'm doing now when I was a child. I think when I was a kid, I expected to be a filmmaker or an animator. I went to school and studied animation. I have a degree in media arts and animation.
You worked on Iron Man 3, the Avengers,
I
the
did,
Shrek movies.
but none of that was through animation stuff. What ended up happening is because I went to school in San Diego and there's no entertainment industry in San Diego. I graduate this for-profit college called the Art Institute, which I think has now been sued. It's one of those things where there's certainly talented people that I went to school with, but there are also not talented young people that were just paying their money, and the school was like, "Yeah, we'll take your money." Like, it's a bummer.
Sure.
But some people graduated and like moved to LA and tried to get animation jobs. I was living in San Diego. I was living with my parents. The job I got after I got my degree was working at a company that did post-production effects for films. So it's kind of related, but the post-production was 3D. They made regular movies into 3D movies. It's another reason I like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. They're both in 3D. Those Tobies.
You do love 3D. Right. You're somebody who still stands 3D, and I can't. I'm not super on board with 3D. But you Brian, enjoy.
There's dozens of us, and if you ever honestly wanted to come and hang out, you're anytime invited to my house to come over. I have a 3D TV, and I could show you some clips and little things in 3D movies that I feel like, because this has happened.
I'm sure I'm not the first person you've offered this to.
Yeah. Every friend who I've ever invited, they come over and they go, "This is actually pretty cool." And I go, "Yes, it is pretty cool when it's done right. Here's a great example of it being pretty cool." So anyway, I was doing this job for a few years, and it's kind of related to animation, but not. Like they took me, they hired me, they tested me. I was able to do this. It's a somewhat creative process because they give you a flat frame of film, and then you essentially sculpt it as though you're doing like CG sculpting in like Maya or whatever, but it's a different program. So it's almost like you're sculpting the scene. Then you kind of overlay the footage and make sure everything works. And then it's kind of animated because scenes move. So when Iron Man goes from here to here, you got to like keyframe it, be like, okay, now he's in 3D space in this way. And you do everything in between. So there's kind of in betweening, but it's not animation per se. But I did that for 2 years, got let go. Then that's what moved me to LA, is I got another job in LA doing the same thing. So, but before I even moved to LA, in 2010, in 2011, I'm living in San Diego. And my girlfriend at the time her and I were driving up to LA to take UCB classes. We were already getting our foot in the sort of improv world. And that's
I think
how I
knew
met
that.
That's how
I think I knew that you were still living in San Diego when we met. Yeah.
It was my girlfriend at the time was a great Lindsay Frank. One of the funniest people ever. Lindsay's great. So so we were taking classes and I was coming up here. And then when I got the job, I think we both moved up. We were living together in Los Angeles. And but my job was sort of the CG, or not CG, but like the 3D movie making. But on the side, I was like, oh, this improv thing has sparked a passion in me that's what ended up really paving the direction for whatever my career was. Because if I had the comic book knowledge, I had the love and the passion, and again, the knowledge can be valuable depending on what the job is. But then I had this improv experience, and I had been doing improv since middle school, high school. I had been comfortable on stage and been able to improvise freely and everything, and that led to meeting people through improv. And then when they got wind that I was like a comic book nerd, another friend of mine, Becca Scott, was like, "You should meet
Becca. Love Becca. Yeah,
Becca's great. You should meet at the time, my boyfriend. He's working for this he's doing some like Twitch stuff. He's doing some basically some internet geeky stuff."
Was that Geek and Sundry?
That was Geek and Sundry.
Yeah.
Or it not at the time, but eventually just led to that not too long after. And got my first sort of jobs of like, can you come and we'll pay you to come and be on the internet and be improvising on the internet, but also can you talk about like Marvel movies and stuff? And I was like, yes, I've worked on them. I love them. So that, and to go back to me being brown for a second, because I know we don't have a lot of time.
We don't, but let's get it in.
I think what ended up happening is me growing up with, let's just say, superheroes is like my passion. Or one of the main ones, right? Most of those characters are white male characters.
Sure.
And when I was a child, I would draw them, I would color them in, and I used my peach colored pencil the most because peach was the most often used color across every. Batman also had peach, Superman had peach, Wonder Woman had peach, Flash, Captain America, all of them. except for Spider-Man, which I think subconsciously it's true. There's a reason that you can, anybody can wear the
Anybody
mask.
can wear the mask,
You can
sure.
see yourself in that character. But as I started to do stuff on the internet and kind of figured out, oh, I'm good at this and I like doing this, I really did start to get horrific internet pushback, as you can imagine, from people being like, oh, you're brown, you shouldn't be in this space. You shouldn't be allowed to be at that company or this company talking about that stuff. You're a token hire, you're diversity hire, you're not qualified, you're this and this and this. And that kind of like radicalized me to like be way aware of social injustice and social inequality at a social level, and me go, oh, wait a minute, yeah, that's actually really fucked up and it's really frustrating. And then I think it opened up my mind to like how marginalized groups are represented, underrepresented, what they kind of deal with, even at a level of like, dude, I'm hired here to talk about comic books and movies, with a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, and like we're just here to have a good time, and you're bringing this into the conversation, and
right.
But it's all tied in, Brian. It's all tied in together, man. White supremacy, at the end of the day, it's the number one problem in the United States, maybe the world. And it's so crazy that like even the fun job of like, you have to go talk about superhero movies, you still have to deal with that. And
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
And dude, I thought that the writer strike, I didn't even consider the past week or so, as everybody was talking about, hope we don't have to strike, but it looks like we're going to. And then I'm seeing people break this down and go, but this also has to deal with white supremacy. This also has to deal with the people in power, who are mostly these CEO guys that love to buy Patagonia vests and spend their money on yachts, not wanting to share, not wanting to, not like seeing where seeing where everything's going, and using excuses of like, well, this is digital, this is different, so there should be no residuals, it's digital. And it's like, well, that's now bullshit. Like we've all, everybody's been very aware of that. But yeah, it's been crazy. And I'm like reading things about like, oh, Latino representation in movies are now at the levels that they were in 2019 or earlier. And I'm like, yeah, things are not getting, but like, and I feel like there's a pushback that's happened honestly since 2016, since Donald Trump was elected president. There was a whiplash of the rest of the United States being like, whoa, like we didn't like Obama for 8 years, so now we're going to really try to course correct and pick on marginalized groups and pick on trans people and do all this stuff that you're like, this how it wasn't this bad when we were children. I mean,
I don't think so. It was I mean, it was unspoken.
It was there.
It was there.
Yes,
but
exactly.
now it's out in the open. And what we're seeing so much of is like, these rich fucks who, the people who are like getting hit the hardest are the people who are at the lower levels of writing. And for the most part, because of how the industry has operated for the last ever, it is people who are from underrepresented backgrounds. And so it's whether that's purposeful or just a consequence of like the lower level writers are the ones getting hit the hardest. It is still a function of white supremacy.
Absolutely.
It's still a function of I think that's what we're up against.
I think there are some, to be honest, I think there are some specific like decisions being made at the top that I do think are like purposeful. Like I
agree. No,
right?
I
that I'm like,
agree. Yeah.
I'm sure that there are some inwardly secretive racist people in Hollywood, because they're the people like that everywhere.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, the decision to like cancel the movie Batgirl, knowing the optics of that, I'm like, somewhere up the food chain there, somebody made the call and be like, and they were like, also because she's like an Afro-Latina. Let's pull the plug on that.
Yeah.
But I do believe there's also obviously what we're discussing is this sort of unconscious.
No, I think it's both.
Bias that
exists. I think it's both. Because if you look at, you hear a lot, like just on my side as a writer, you hear a lot about like, oh yeah, we're looking for what's going to appeal to middle America, and that is code for what is white and safe.
Right.
And
right.
What have we been watching for 50 years?
It's funny because when I said I was like radicalized, and I try to really, really, really be aware of stuff, but also have gone down some like the annoying deep rabbit holes of like just misery as I've tried to argue with white supremacists on Twitter years ago, or I tried to like, defend myself or whatever. And it took like people who love me to be like, Hector, stop. Like, you got to stop. Like, just block this person and just, or again, if we're men, we can use our whatever position we have or whatever platform, like uplift the voices of the people who need to, like, that's when I was like,
Absolutely.
Okay, I need to try to do that as much as possible. But it's not stuff that I try to like actively engage in.
I think that's good.
And me and my two buddies, we have a YouTube channel now that we've been
please
doing
talk
for a
about
bit.
that. Yeah.
It's called Heroes Reforged, and
yes, it is.
It's just us hanging out, and it's us watching the stuff that we love, because that's big on YouTube right now for now. And what's great is that we get so many messages. It makes me so happy, Brian, because we get messages from people going, I looked for people that were watching the show that I really love that's airing right now, and I found people who were hateful and miserable and offensively hateful, like racist, homophobic, sexist, whatever. And then I found you and your friends, Hector. I found you three guys, and you guys are lovely, and you're aware of social issues, and you talk about stuff critically, but you don't hate on stuff. You don't drag stuff down. And especially because me and my two buddies came from that sort of visual effects post-production background. We end up going to bat for visual effects stuff, whereas I feel like a lot of geeky internet immediately tears something down and goes, oh, the CG is garbage. And me and my buddies are like, yeah, because these artists didn't have enough time, because the money and the allocated resources. I'm like, we were there. We the most common note we would receive on our shots when we would turn them in to be finished is we would get approved, and then we would see CBB was a note, which stood for could be better. But you gotta approve the shot.
Got it.
Not comedy bang bang. When I hear CBB, I think could be better, which just means get it into the movie needs to come out, you know, and that's a bummer. But those huge films that have so many different moving parts, or TV shows now, like so many different teams of anonymous artists that are wonderfully talented, and they're working with what they got. And so anyway, all this to say, I'm really proud of the fact that people on the internet, especially like people of color and women and gay folks, message us and goes, thank you guys for just not, it's bare minimum. It's the bare minimum thing, but they go, thank you for not being hateful, first of all. And
that's such a big deal on the internet,
for being welcoming, especially on YouTube, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then we've also gotten messages from people who work in the industry. I've gotten messages from post-production people, visual effects people that say, hey, you guys are awesome. We really love watching your stuff. We've gotten messages from showrunners, from directors, people who I adore and really admire, and they go, we watch your stuff, you know, we shared around the office, we shared around all these big, you know. One time I was doing a thing for DC Comics at New York Comic-Con a few years ago, I think 2020, right before the pandemic shut everything down. And the movie Birds of Prey had come out, or was about to come out. And I did an event, and the cast was there, and I really briefly, like, my DC coworkers were so sweet. They're like, go get a poster signed by Margot Robbie and Journey Smollett. They're like, go get a poster signed by him. And I was like, no. They're like, go, it's fine. You can go. You're allowed to in this space. You're working for us. Please, please, please. So I'm like, I put a poster on this little table. You know, I'm like, hi, I'm a big fan. And Margot Robbie and Journey Smollett recognized me. She goes, I know you. I think she said, our producer sent us your trailer reaction for Birds of Prey.
That's cool.
You know, and Margot Robbie was like, yeah. And she was so excited, and she was so like, and she said something like, oh, you guys are the reason we do this stuff. This is great. And I remember thinking, I was so proud, because I'm like, I'm sure there's other trailer reactions for the movie Birds of Prey that are full of hate, that are full of hate, that are full of dudes criticizing the movie. But me and my buddies, we're three straight guys, we're like stoked on this movie, and we're like, it looks so cool, and I love these characters. So I think we become producer safe. Like the producers now comb through stuff, and they go, oh, okay, these guys are good. Let me send them to, you know. So I'm very proud of that. So yeah.
Hector, we have less than a minute left. This has gone way too fast. So where can people follow you? Anything that you want to plug? Let's get that in.
You got it. You can go to youtube.com/heroesreforged, and you can also follow me on the internet, while Twitter's still a thing, at Hector is Funny, and I'm on Instagram, and I think TikTok at Hector is Funny. And I do TikTok videos where I just show my action figures off. That's what I like to do with my time. So Brian, you're a delight, man. Thank you for having me.
While we're still going, we're gonna go until the Zoom runs out. Hector, what do you think happens after we die?
Has anybody quoted Keanu Reeves when you asked them this?
Not yet.
The people who love us miss us. That's what Keanu said to Stephen Colbert when Colbert asked him the exact same question. And I think it's the best possible answer in the universe. Keanu Reeves.
Really lovely. If you could know your future but couldn't change it, would you want to, or would you rather not know?
Oh, God.
Your meeting has ended. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to 39-Minute Conversations, hosted and produced by Brian T. Arnold. Music by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and tune in for new episodes, and don't forget to rate and review. If you didn't like what you heard, please don't do any of that. That's okay too. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe and be well.